This is going to be a controversial take, but if you want to be a good photographer, your camera does not matter. Your equipment doesn't matter. An amazing location, it doesn't matter. An expensive production studio, it does not matter. Money, material, experience, it does not matter if you don't understand the fundamental concept of what makes good photography. Light. And lucky for us, light is something that is readily available for all of us, and the understanding of it is the fundamental concept that makes good photography, especially if you're a portrait photographer. Most of us don't start out with a large selection of gear, and so it's important to be resourceful, especially if you're starting out. And today I'm going to talk about a few tips on how to create stunning portraits when you're on a budget. My first tip is utilize natural light. We talked about this in the previous video, and it's really just such a good tool for creating beautiful natural portraits. There are so many things to learn about natural light, and you can do that by just observing how the light changes throughout the day. Just when you're out and about, see what it looks like just before sunset, just after sunset, and see how you can incorporate that into your portraits. This is especially useful if you're shooting outside, which a lot of us do when we're starting out. There are many photographers that built their entire careers on natural light. And even if you move into studio photography eventually, it's really good to know your ambient light. Slowly turn towards looking at the sun, just very slowly. Yeah. Having a small budget doesn't necessarily prevent you from experimenting with artificial light. Sure, having full production lighting can be expensive, but there's so much you can do with very little. You can use on-camera flashes, off-camera flashes, or even experiment with colorful LED lights. And don't be afraid to use flash outdoors. It can create really cool effects. You can do so much with so little equipment. One of the main factors if you're not renting a studio is to know your locations. Keeping a mental map of really cool locations in your area is a huge asset. And for me personally, it's a great way to get to know my home. Another thing you could incorporate into your portraits is reflections. Maybe you can use a mirror or find a really reflective window. It can create so much depth in your photos and can lead to some really creative portraits. And if you're in really harsh lighting conditions, maybe you could experiment with some different types of shadows, or placing your subject into an existing shadow. Now let's talk about gear. The best camera is the one you already have. And everything I've talked about so far is applicable even if you're shooting with your phone. There are plenty of entry-level cameras out there, and if your budget allows it, try to find a full-frame camera. That's going to make it a lot easier once you're switching to professional work. We've been making great cameras for a while, so even looking at used gear can be great if you're on a budget. Another thing to consider is that it's better to invest in the lenses rather than the camera body. That's going to make a huge impact on your image quality. And if you're not sure what type of lens you want to use, we actually have a video on that explaining all the different focal lengths. And it's okay to start with a small setup. The only way you know what you'd like to shoot with is by continuing to experiment with it. Personally, I started out with an analog camera that I got for $70. Slowly, over time, I realized what I need and what I don't need. And now I have a full professional setup that's perfectly tailored to my needs. And now to my last point. The most important investment you can make in your photography journey is yourself. You're watching this video, and that shows me that you already know this point. Educating yourself, either by watching videos, reading books, or just experimenting, is a very valuable habit, and it will make you a better photographer over time. And if you do ever have any technical questions, you can always come to our Superstore and talk to our experts. Or you can video chat us on our website. Thank you so much for watching. And let me know in the comments, what was your first camera?